I'm not one for marking occasions. Christmas cards and birthday celebrations aren't really my thing. I am delighted to be present in the moment. However, I think an unintended consequence of being focused on the now is that you may not notice the seasons and years zipping past the side view mirror. Getting older sneaks up on you. One day you're graduating high school, imagining the limitless potential of a life just beginning, and the next you're mediating squabbles about who has more cereal between your kids while your own body creaks and groans in protest of simply getting out of bed. Michael Crichton once wrote, "In reality, time doesn't pass. We pass. Time itself is invariant. It just is." I remember riding the bus home from school as a boy. It was an exceedingly boring and long route, and I would stare out the window. Power poles replacing each other, rows of pine trees blending into a blur. The bus would slow, stop, a nameless student would depart, and we would be on our way again. But there was something hypnotic, almost trance-inducing about the sameness of the process. And the next thing I would know, it would finally be my turn to get off, and I wouldn't even remember the ride. I'm terrified of aging that way. I don't want to be mesmerized by life's monotony while time continues in its invariant indifference. And I tremble at the idea of not realizing my potential. And so, when my 40th birthday was creeping up on me, I decided to intentionally mark the occasion. I settled on a particular idea for exploring my limits. Here's what I planned. I would get up early in the morning, go to a little country church, and then run all day on the Pinhoti Trail, finishing at Lake Howard, 40 miles away. Not as a part of an event or any race, I would do this alone. I'd gotten the idea in part because of Michael Easter. In his book, The Comfort Crisis, he talks about a Japanese practice called Misogi, in which a person takes on a radically hard, nature-based physical challenge for the sake of growth. Misogi, Easter says, should follow 2 rules. Rule 1, make it really hard. Rule 2, don't die. A few days before my birthday, my buddy Parker, who agreed to document this day for me, texted me to see if I had seen the forecast. Checking the weather, I saw that God was taking care of ensuring I would follow rule number 1. A high of 25 degrees Fahrenheit with freezing rain and a wintry mix predicted for the early morning hours. Hopefully, I thought to myself, God would ensure that I was able to follow rule number 2 as well. At one point during the run, I crested an exposed peak and became acutely aware of just how cold I was. I could barely operate my fingers and hands, and I could sense my body temperature dropping, and I was struck with the urgent need to just keep moving. It was in that moment, though, that I had a profound sense of what matters to me. I clearly saw my own expectations, namely that I want to love and be loved, and I beheld my deep desire to avoid what-ifs as I entered the second half of my journey. It was as I began to descend that hill that a question arose in my soul. What makes for a good story? The answer came quickly. It's the conflict, struggle, battle, enemy, difficulty, predicament, setback, loss, or problem that arises for the character. And what makes for a truly compelling story is when the character acknowledges the danger ahead and proceeds. A couple of years ago, I asked my boys if they knew what the word courage means. I got 3 answers: being bold, bravery, and fearlessness. I said yes to the first 2, but to fearlessness, I said, a lot of people think that because courage looks like fearlessness, but no. Courage is not never being afraid. Courage is being afraid, but venturing forth anyway. Looking back at 40 years, it's easy to ponder what could have been. Choices, sacrifices, and unexpected turns. What if I had taken a different path? What ifs can be haunting. They whisper how things could have been and invite you to consider any difficulty you have and then turn your back on what is before you and embrace regret. Years ago, a man for whom I have immense respect and admiration, citing his own midlife angst, suggested I avoid his mistake of leaving his 30s behind without some guidance, and told me to give him a buzz when I was getting nearer to that point. In that conversation, he shared with me what had led to him suggesting I reach out. As he had approached and passed 40 years old, he found himself staring out his office window frequently, observing the courtyard below despite his long to-do list. Something wasn't right, and he wasn't sure what. Eventually, he said he remembers exactly where he was when it occurred to him he was struck with the realization that he was having a midlife crisis. The root, he learned in the months that followed, was an internal wrestling with the reality that his life hadn't quite turned out the way he had imagined it might. Despite a healthy marriage, a loving home full of children, friendships, meaningful community involvement, and an engaging career, he had subconscious, unmet expectations about his own accomplishments and accolades. Expectations can be tricky. They may be there without you even knowing, and they whisper to you how things should be or should have been, and they invite you to embrace discontent. There's a wonderful scene from Prince Caspian. Lucy thinks that she has seen Aslan the lion, but when her siblings don't believe her, she doesn't follow after Aslan. Later, when she does meet up with him, she asks him, "But would that have been the good?" Aslan said nothing. "You mean," said Lucy rather faintly, "that it would have turned out all right, somehow? But how? Please, Aslan, am I not to know?" "To know what would have happened, child?" said Aslan. "No, nobody is ever told that." "Oh dear," said Lucy. "But anyone can find out what will happen," said Aslan. "If you go back to the others now and wake them up and tell them you have seen me again, and then you must all get up at once and follow me. What will happen? There's only one way of finding out." I exited the woods after dark, coming into view of Lake Howard's dock lights, just a little over 12 hours from setting out of the church parking lot. I jogged into a gravel area where Parker waited for me, along with my wife, 4 sons, and my dog Ellie. I ran 40 icy miles on my 40th birthday, and I experienced the joy of seeing those I love at the finish line. And I experienced the value of Misogi. It was really hard. I didn't die, and I grew that day. I grew by discerning that adversity and discomfort are necessary parts of a story worth your attention. And I sense that embracing them as such can keep you from persistent regret or grappling with what-ifs, especially if you're willing to use them as the impetus or drive to grow, change, adapt, overcome, progress, learn, and become something more. Few things are sadder to me than the person imprisoned in bitterness and resentment. And few things are more appealing to me than the pursuit and realization of potential, which I have come to understand is achieved only through overcoming obstacles. This experience, both of turning 40 and of enduring this challenge, leaves me with deep gratitude for the years and experiences behind me, and also with a joyful expectation for the years to come. I don't know what precisely lies ahead in the second half of my journey, but I'm convinced that if I set expectations aside and venture forth into the discomfort and danger that will come, I will accomplish far more than I ever gave myself permission to believe. Difficulties enrich your narrative. And what better legacy can one leave than to have loved and been loved, and to have lived a life worth living, having accepted hardships as gifts from the great storyteller, given to enable you to realize your potential. There were times where I'm like, it's like 15 degrees.
Yeah.
Every tree around me is just completely taken ice. This doesn't even remotely look like Alabama. So I picked the coldest day of the year. And I got up when it was still dark. I ran 40 miles. I can't wait to look at my splits. I may have been quicker on the second half. My second 20 miles may have been faster than my first 20
Just
miles.
want to get it done.
There's something special about reverse splits. Second half is better even though it's harder.